Over the course of 37 seasons spanning nearly 4 decades, The Simpsons is probably the show with the largest number of characters ever created in TV history. But did you know that several of these characters were simply deleted from the show, and most people have no idea why? This is the case, for example, of one of the most beloved characters in the entire series, Apu Nahasapima Petalon. Of course, you remember the owner of the Quick E-Mart who once sold expired meat to Homer, which, believe it or not, ended up sending Marge's husband to the hospital with food poisoning. He even starred in some episodes, like when he was uncertain about his marriage, or when his wife gave birth to 8 kids. The fact is, anyone who grew up watching The Simpsons knows how important Apu was. But everything started to change in 2017, when he became the target of criticism after the documentary, The Problem with Apu, made by the so-called comedian, who's really not funny at all, Hari Kondabolu. The main complaints were that the character was an exaggerated stereotype of an Indian immigrant, and that the voice and accent were done by a white actor. Critics, who seem to hate laughing, also claimed that some of the older jokes had become offensive over time. The result was that, in January 2020, actor Hank Azaria announced he would no longer voice Apu, which was very sad news for fans of the character like us. But hey, who cares about the fans, right? After that, Apu pretty much vanished from the series, showing up only in background scenes with no new lines, and never again starring in his own episode. He wasn't officially killed off or removed from the universe, but he never got the spotlight again. So thanks Hari Kondabolu for this awful work that actually reduced the already limited representation of Indian characters in popular shows. Congratulations. Not really. And besides Apu, several other amazing Simpsons characters ended up being completely erased from Springfield's history for a variety of reasons, including death, contract disputes, or simply the writer's decision, as we're about to tell you. Get ready to have your mind blown, and let's take a peek together. Everybody knows Ned Flanders, the kind-hearted neighbor of The Simpsons, but many forget the name of his wife, Maude. Although she didn't appear that often, Maude was part of the show's regular cast. Everything changed in the year 2000, when Maude was killed in the episode Alone Again, Natra Diddley, hit by a t-shirt cannon. What most people don't know is that Maude's death wasn't accidental at all. It was intentional. And we're not talking about the cheerleaders who fired the t-shirts, but the creative team of the show, who decided Maude should die after her original voice actress, Maggie Roswell, left the show in 1999 due to a contract dispute. Instead of recasting, the studio chose to kill the character. The worst part is that the voice actress returned years later for other roles and Maude flashbacks, but the character remained dead in the show's timeline. Poor Ned ended up a widower because of a poorly handled contract. Later on, he did get into a romance with Miss Crabapple, Bart's teacher, but that wouldn't have a happy ending either. We all remember the countless times Bart was seen writing corrective sentences on the dark chalkboard in his classroom, and that only happened because Miss Crabapple kept trying to make the Simpsons' eldest son improve his behavior. But that came to a complete end when Edna Crabapple was permanently removed from the show for a very sad reason. The show's official voice actress, Marsha Wallace, passed away in 2013. Since the character was so closely tied to Wallace's voice and style, she was considered irreplaceable and was written out for good. As a tribute to both the character and her voice actress, Edna had 2 goodbyes, one being a short tribute in the 2014 episode 4 Regrettings and a Funeral, and later, a special scene in the 2021 episode The Fateful 8, showing Ned remembering her. Poor Ned, his fate really seems to be staying alone, at least for now.
Sure do miss that laugh.
Speaking of The Simpsons' neighbors, it seems like living next door to Marge and Homer doesn't bring Vita luck. That's because another Video's ER, who ended up being practically erased from the show's most Video seasons, was none other than Lisa's neighbor from the other side of the house, Ruth Powers. Ruth is the single neighbor who even becomes friends with Marge. She's the mother of Laura, an older girl Bart develops a crush on. The Video's ER's first appearance was in 1992, and her last speaking role was in 1995. But unlike the last 2 cases, this wasn't due to contractual disputes or the death of her voice actress. The truth is that Pamela Reed, her voice actress, had other commitments at the time, including work in movies and TV shows, and the team Videos didn't prioritize writing new stories for Ruth. Ruth didn't die, but she started showing up as a Video's background videos air in Springfield crowds or events. As a result, her daughter Laura also disappeared and has Vita made extremely rare visual cameos. Before we continue with our list, click the subscribe button right now so you won't miss our upcoming videos. We all know that the most unique member of the Simpsons family is Lisa, and what many don't even remember is that her love for playing the saxophone was directly inspired by her mentor, Bleeding Gums Murphy. Murphy was the perfect image of a Springfield jazz musician. He played the saxophone and was a huge inspiration for Lisa. He first appeared back in season 1 in the episode Moaning Lisa. He was always portrayed as a wise mentor, but with a tough life, much like any true jazz and blues musician. He's the long-lost older brother of Dr. Hibbert and appeared in the opening credits from season 1 through season 19, in the shot where Bart rides his skateboard down the sidewalk. And there's Murphy. Unfortunately, over the course of the series, Murphy ends up dying. Murphy dies off-screen due to a mysterious illness, and Lisa finds out about his death on the radio, leaving her heartbroken. The whole episode is a farewell, showing flashbacks and tributes. In the end, he appears to Lisa as a spirit in the clouds to play one last song with her. but he had to share the scene with Mufasa from The Lion King and Darth Vader. And no, there was no contractual dispute or death of a voice actor here. This time, it was just the character who died. The writers wanted to create a more emotional episode, which was rare for The Simpsons in the 90s. It was also a way to reinforce the more melancholic and realistic side of life in Springfield. He's one of the few characters who continues to make regular appearances in the show, even after his death. If you've been watching The Simpsons for years like we have, you definitely remember the episode where Homer goes to work for a criminal mastermind straight out of a James Bond movie named Hank Scorpio. In fact, in that episode, Homer, unknowingly of course, ends up helping to capture The Simpsons version of James Bond, who is promptly executed by Scorpio's henchmen right after. Hank was always shown as a boss who cared about his employees, even while keeping his world domination and extortion plans tucked away in his back pocket. The character was actually supposed to be the main villain in the Simpsons movie, but for a number of reasons, like his friendship with Homer, his likable personality, and the fact that he wouldn't be widely recognized by the general audience, that idea was scrapped. This global threat-level supervillain still showed up in a few more episodes, like Bart's birthday and even in the 2014 crossover between Family Guy and The Simpsons, which was his last appearance to date. The reason for his disappearance is pretty simple. The show's writers said he was such a great character that they'd only bring him back if they had a storyline worthy of his reputation. Also because he's an over-the-top yet beloved villain, bringing him back would force the series to explain his life after his first appearance. So the show decided to preserve him as a one-time classic, though occasional references keep his memory alive. But I have to say, I'd love to see Scorpio show up at least one more time in an episode where he's the protagonist alongside a 007-style Homer tasked with capturing him. And hey, if you ever need a Disney writer, just give me a call. You might not remember, but Jacques is a charming French bowling instructor who tries to seduce Marge after she gets an unusual birthday gift from Homer, a bowling ball with his name on it. After that episode, which aired back in season 1, we barely saw anything of the character again. He makes a quick cameo in a bowling scene, without any lines, in 2011 during season 23. He's also one of the crowd members holding a torch while heading to Homer's house to make him pay for everyone being trapped under the glass dome, but again, with no lines. And so, many years went by with the character completely sidelined. According to the creators, Jacques was designed specifically for the plot of that one episode where he tries to win over Marge. The story wraps up in that very episode, with Marge choosing to stay faithful to Homer. Since the relationship between Marge and Jacques ended there, the writers saw no reason to bring him back, but to everyone's surprise, after 30 years, in 2023, Jacques returned with actual lines in episode 17 of season 34, called Pin Gal. In it, Marge faces off against Jacques once again to save Barney's bowling alley. So, will we have to wait another 30 years to see Jacques again? Now heading over to Springfield Elementary, where Lisa and Bart have been studying for over 30 years. Among all the odd staff members working under Principal Skinner, without a doubt. After groundskeeper Willie, one of the most memorable is lunch lady Doris, always smoking while serving the kids their food or accepting animal organs to cook up some of the grossest meals in history. She's the character who most embodies the soulless woman stereotype in the series. Her first appearance was back in season 3, in the episode Lisa's Pony, which aired in 1991. She was voiced by Doris Grau, who was also the show's script supervisor. In fact, the character's name was a tribute to her. However, something unprecedented happened with this character. She went 11 years without speaking a single word on the show. The reason? Doris Grau passed away in 1995 during the production of season 7. Out of respect, the character continued to appear visually but without any lines for many years after the actress's death. The team didn't want to replace her voice right away, choosing instead to keep the character as a silent background figure to honor the original actress. In season 18, released in 2006, the character finally spoke again, this time voiced by Tress MacNeille. To mark the change and avoid confusion with the tribute to the original actress, she was officially renamed Lunch Lady Dora in scripts and credits, although her appearance remained identical. Since then, she has continued to make occasional speaking appearances, though never with the same frequency or prominence she once had. Lunch Lady Doris is a rare case in The Simpsons. A character paused for over a decade due to the voice actress's death, only to eventually return. So, did you know about this one? Our list is over, but you don't have to leave. We've picked 2 videos right here for you to keep having fun. Pick one and let's go to the next.